And we're going to call the meeting to order. We will start with correspondence, which is underwhelming. We got to thank you for renewing our NFPA membership. We got a notice from Vanguard about it's a prospectus on a Vanguard FTSE Emerging Markets Fund that we must be invested in the LOSAP. Bob, if you want that, I'll forward that to you.
Sure.
Additional communication from Vanguard on the same fund. Again, Bob, I can forward that to you. And we got a communication from Central Hudson with a picture of somebody from Croft Corners to Jan Bonanza, fire chief. Huh. East Clinton Fire District. Wondering if we want a free energy assessment. Anybody want to weigh in on that?
It wouldn't hurt.
It wouldn't hurt. I will note that we got an energy assessment at work. It's an 85,000 square foot facility. Central Hudson gifted us with brand new LED fixtures over the entire facility at no charge. So sometimes you can run into a real deal.
Is Don Estes interested in that?
Well, I'll call and see what it involves. How's that?
Okay.
Then we got a communication from Stanford Fire Company wanting to know if we want to play in their second annual golf tournament on Friday, July 16th. The entry fee is $125 a player, and hole sponsorships are $100. Any interest on the company level there, Donald, or anybody else that might be at the firehouse?
We're unmuted, Don.
You could bring it down. We'll post it, Stephen.
All right, we'll do. We'll do. All right, that's all I have for correspondence. Minutes. We have all had opportunity to review the meeting minutes for the April 14th meeting, and I request a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion. We approve the minutes.
I think Mike was seconding.
Yep, I was seconding, yes.
Okay, are there any additions, corrections, discussion, corrections, or the like? Okay, therefore, Mr. Trzynski, what is your pleasure?
Aye.
Mr. Fierro,
Aye.
Mr. DiGiacomo,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Motion carries 4-0. Does anybody have any idea where Russ might be or have a phone number for Russ?
I have got his.
You want it?
Maybe we want to call Russ if somebody's got his number.
Kev, you got his number handy?
I have his number on my phone. I can, yeah, I can.
All right, I'm going to keep going if somebody wants to call. Financials. I covered a motion to pay the bills per the abstract. Was that Michael? Are you doing something there? Is that the motion?
Sorry.
Russ is coming in.
He's coming in?
Yep. All right. Did somebody make a motion to pay the bills per the abstract?
I make the motion.
Thank you. Second? Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion?
Bob, you wanted to discuss the annual bill, remember?
Hey, Deb.
Any discussion?
I think Bob Trzynski wanted to mention something about the annual dinner bill.
Bob, you there?
Yeah. Yeah. The annual dinner bill looks really good. We budgeted 8,000 and the company is only requesting less than 6. I think it's 5,008. that's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
Compared to where we were, close to 14,000, not the distant past. Not this board, but that's impressive.
yeah, I think it was a fine job on the part of the department. Any other discussion or corrections or additions?
Steve,
Yeah,
I have a pending bill that's going to be coming in probably tomorrow or the next day. It's for Orkin. It's the annual bill that we typically get.
from whom?
Orkin, the pest control.
Oh, it's an annual bill?
Yeah.
How much?
I have no idea yet.
Oh, well, it's
It's
a
usually-
recurring bill, right?
Yes.
All right, so we can deal with that under the authority you have to pay recurring charges.
Correct.
Can we
I was just mentioned, yes, I was just mentioning it, that it would be
Okay,
check number 3268.
3268. All right. All right, if there's no other discussion, Russ, what's your pleasure?
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. The motion carries. I have had opportunity to review the bank statements, and I find that they are in agreement with the financial statements as published by Mr. Pasikoff and Mr. Simon, and I would move that we accept the financials. Covered a second.
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 Any discussion? Okay, Kevin, what's your pleasure?
Aye. Sorry.
Russ?
Aye.
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. That motion carries. Mr. Pasikoff, I thought I saw you coming in.
I'm here.
I don't see your smiling face.
I do.
Do you?
Yeah, he's on ours.
Yeah.
Maybe I gotta rearrange my matrix here. That's okay.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. That's the important part. There you are. So the AUD, I just want to confirm, has been filed.
That was correct.
Okay. And independent audit status, where do we stand? Are we commencing with interactions with the auditor?
I sent stuff to them and I haven't heard anything back.
All right, should we follow through and see what they need from us?
I'll check on Tuesday and see where they stand.
All
Any
right.
thoughts on when that audit most likely will be completed?
Well, we got our fingers and toes crossed that it's finished by June 30th.
Yeah, but I'm not holding my breath.
Okay.
All
Best
right.
ca-
Now, while we have Mr. Pasikoff, the surplus for the 2020 fiscal year was 180 some thousand. You have the exact number?
Yeah. Bear with me half a second. I'm not good at flipping pages.
I thought you were gonna tell me you weren't good with numbers. That was gonna scare me.
It's about 186,000, yes.
186,000. Okay.
The combined with the 50 or so that was left over from the prior year is 236, 764.98.
Now you were recommending we maintain a balance of 75 to carry forward.
I think so, yeah.
So
And I'm
that-
saying, and that's really the expenses, the total expenses for the first 2 months of the year.
Right. So
When-
that leaves us, that was 21,000, I think, more than the 54 we carried over the year before.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound right? So that would leave us about 165 surplus that we need to deal with.
Right. If you
Um,
wanted to do a little bit more, you could. If you wanted to move a little bit more, you could. Because there are some bills that we could probably hold off until until March, when you get the money from the town.
Are you
But if
comfortable?
you have I guess I was saying 100, maybe 60,000 But at 75, that's probably reasonable. Leave it at the 75.
Anybody want to voice any, what we're trying to do here, we got a surplus. We got some expenses coming up. That we were going to take out of the surplus, and then we need to commit some of the balance of the surplus to reserve funds. By my math, if we maintain a balance to cover January and February of 2022 of 75,000, that leaves us 165 to disperse. We know we've got 30 committed to share an ambulance, probably plus another 5 for miscellaneous expenses, lettering, and so on. And we know we're going to be in for, I would argue 10 for the review of the facilities and getting a start on the facility project. So that's that leaves in my mind 120 to disperse, or 120 to disperse to reserve funds. You with my math so far, Jim? Or
Yeah.
I guess we, so the questions are people comfortable with carrying 75 forward? And are they comfortable with the idea of holding 45 back to cover the Sharon ambulance, the miscellaneous stuff that's going to come from the Sharon ambulance, and $10,000 for the facility evaluation? So Kevin, I need you to weigh in, and anybody else.
Is that going to be enough, Steve?
Well, what were the 3 bids?
8,500 for McCormick. LaBella, we weren't really too sure. I mean, he's got a bunch of numbers going back and forth. And then H2M is 19.5.
Well, do we want to start by deciding what firm we want to go with for the facilities evaluation, or because that's going to answer the question as to whether 10 is enough? Looking for some input or some direction from you boys.
Well, I mean, we could start off with that. My only thought was it would have been nice to have McCormick actually come down and talk to us like the other firms did, and that didn't happen. You know, we do have his, his proposal, which I guess covers most of it.
Kevin, did McCormick ever get out to Connecticut to take a look at that other facility like we talked about?
Don't think he did. Nothing came back to me that he did.
Did you guys go out?
No, we didn't.
Yeah, we might want to hold off until that time, Steve. Are we committed if we say we're going to, can we hold back 25,000 from any allocation and just let it sit there for another month or so?
I think we could. I mean, I'm anxious to at least get some of this committed.
Sure.
Right.
So
I agree with that too. We definitely have to move forward with this.
Yeah. So Steve, everything but say 20,000. Just hold 20,000 in stasis until
so that would leave us 100,000 to reserve.
Yeah, for now, and then we'll see what we have in a month or two. Then we can revisit where we put it.
Now, do recall if we sell, and we've had some interest, not a lot, some interest in the rehab vehicle. If we sell that, we'll have those monies available. Right, we're gonna have to figure out a home for that. So Bob, any ideas on if we had 100 to reserve, how you would want to distribute it?
You're asking me?
I am.
I thought I saw apparatus 60 and building allocation 55, and it was circled in yellow on the documents. So we just take a ratio of those numbers.
I was thinking heavier towards the apparatus. If
Mhm.
we had 100, I was going to go 75-25 for argument's sake.
For
Apparatus,
now, that's fine.
apparatus to capital fund. And that still leaves us additional monies to ponder. Anybody else want to weigh in? Russ or Kevin or Mike?
Yeah, I think that'd be fine. 75-25. I mean,
All right,
Good to
so
both
then
those
I will
options.
move that $100,000 of the 2020 surplus, additional to be determined later, be allocated to reserve funds to the tune of 75 to the equipment purchase fund and 25 to the capital improvement fund. And I covered a second.
a second.
Okay, any discussion?
That pretty much covers it. We'll look at it, what the numbers look like in maybe 2 months. I
Russ, you
think
good
we'll
with
know by
that?
then.
The only question I got is, and maybe Hasikoff or Rod McLeod would say, is there any time limit where we have to move these things, or can we do what you're saying now, and then if we have later, move more? Does it have to be done within a certain time frame?
I think if, this is Jim Pasicleff, I think if you move the 100 now, with the possibility of moving more later, that's okay. I don't think anybody will find fault with it. The issue is that you do have a plan of some sort for the money, and you're working on that plan. And that's the key ingredient.
Okay, well, then I have no problem with, as suggested by Steve.
Any issues with the plan, Rod? Are you in agreement?
Oh, that's good.
Okay, all right. Anybody have any other discussion or questions? Because we want to make sure we're all gonna have opportunity on this one.
Here we go.
All right, that being said, Russ, what's your pleasure?
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Bob,
All right,
Kevin?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. So Bob, you will distribute from the general fund $75,000 to the equipment purchase fund and $25,000 to the capital improvement fund. Is that your understanding?
That is my understanding.
Very good. Thank you. And there's more to follow.
Yes, I understand that too.
Yeah, okay. So 100 down. Okay.
Steve, this is
Yeah.
Jim. You said something about possible selling of the rehab vehicle.
Yeah, we did.
Where was that purchased from?
It was
What fund?
purchased from, it was
what
purchased
fund?
in 2013, which is before anybody that sits on the board currently. I think it was from a fire department down in New Jersey. Where are you going with it?
Was it purchased from the reserve, from the apparatus reserve, equipment reserve, or was it purchased from the general fund?
Well, technically, we don't think we had an equipment reserve at that point in time, so I don't know what that means.
We didn't
Okay.
have a facility of a reserve fund. Mary
You had
Ann, if she's in the room, should be able to answer that question. Bob Simon, is Mary Ann there?
Yes, Bob Simon said, yeah, Mary Ann's here. The question
Ask
is,
her that question.
which fund, when they purchased the rehab vehicle, which fund did it come out of?
We bonded that, didn't we, Mary Ann?
The vehicle
It came out of the
that was at Citizens Bank at the time,
equipment reserve fund, right?
equipment reserve.
Equipment reserve, Steve.
Okay, where are you going with that there, Jim?
If it came from the equipment reserve, then when you sell it, that money should go back into the equipment reserve.
Right. And that makes perfect sense to me. And I don't think anybody would quibble with that. I thought, Mary Ann, that we had a lease to buy on that.
We purchased, a lease. I'd say.
Did you purchase it outright? Yeah, they shipped it outright, Steve. There was no lease.
Okay, before Steve. Yep. So Jim's saying if as we sell that, we should put that money back into the into the equipment purchase fund. So while we have Mr. Pasikoff, are there any other additional questions that we need to bounce off him, or can we let him go? Nobody has questions for Jim? Well, Jim, as always, you're free to hang around, but otherwise have a good night.
Okay, it's more fun doing tax returns, but you know how it is. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, Jim. Thank you.
All right. So Kevin,
Yes, sir.
what I kind of heard you say is you don't think we're ready to make a decision on.
Well, we can. I mean, you know, McCormick does have in here that he's willing to, you know, work with the public and you know, represent us at that phase. So, you know, that's a very important aspect.
So if you had a recommendation, or Elliot's on, or he was on, a facilities committee, what would you recommend?
Well, I would recommend, I mean, you know, McCormick's already been there. He knows the building. He knows the facility. It seems like he's willing to work with us too. You know, McCormick, Labella, but it's tough to say, but you know, I would give McCormick a shot. I mean, once again, we can start off with him and move on from there.
Right. We're not committed. We're not committing anything beyond the evaluation.
Right. And like, you know, like I said, he's been there. He already did plans. He's been through the facility. He knows it. So, you know, for his 8,500 compared to everybody else, you know, H2M wants almost 20,000. And Labella, from what I can see, Labella is probably going to be 710, probably about 11 to 12,000, which isn't terrible either. Anybody else have any thoughts?
Yeah, as we had a meeting not too long ago where we were discussing this at the firehouse, and I think that, you know, unfortunately, but fortunately, I think McCormick is proposing a price to us based upon the fact that his brother was a chief and his brother is deceased in that terrible accident. I think he's trying to do the best for us. And how can I say, be good to us because of the fact that his brother had an affinity with the fire department. So I think his heart's in the right place. And I think that's where that price comes in. It's much lower than anybody else. And I did mention something to him at the dinner recently, mentioning that some of the people in the fire department had been to Falls Village and liked what they saw there. And I think if I remember right, he was amiable to go over and look at that so he'd get an idea too. So I don't have a problem with going ahead and giving it to McCormick. I can understand Kevin's feeling that we did have in-person presentations from the other one, but I'm thinking that even though we haven't had an in-person visit from McCormick, that it might be the way to go. I kind of hammered around there a lot, but
No. Now, I mean, I think that if we take this step and move forward, in my opinion, it would be imperative that the the full commissioner board participate as opposed to just the facilities committee. Is there any pushback on that? I mean, I think,
No, Steve, I totally agree with that. I think, the more input, there's a few people on the board that have, including yourself, that are active right now and have been active in the fire department. With the input from you guys, that's very important.
right.
Yeah, I
and-
mean, the money's gonna come from the district, and I think all the commissioners should be involved in the decision-making process here.
All right, I want to say it as gently as possible without stepping on anybody's toes, but on the same end, I will warn you that, I'm very determined to do this with as minimal a tax increase as possible. If we can keep it at no increase, all the better, right? And I'm going to be a bit of a pain in the neck on that, but
You can take my place.
your pain is a little bit lower. The pain you induce is lower, Bob.
Steve, just for what it's worth, I think you need a connection, a contact person, because you can't have McCormick talking to 5 or 6 different people. You have to funnel the information, I think, to make it work. Have Kevin or whomever, the sort of the point person.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, that would be fine too, Elliot and Steve. Yeah, that's fine.
Because
But as
otherwise
long
it
as
gets too
everyone's-
confusing.
Right, but as long as everyone's got a say and thoughts in it,
Sure.
I
All right.
understand that too. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no sense in going through 5, 6, 8 people.
Right.
no,
you know.
so I think Kevin, if you want, if you should make a motion that we proceed with McCormick for the tune of whatever the price is going to be, and I would include in that motion that you would be the point person, a point of contact, the liaison between McCormick and the board, and try to arrange an initial meeting. But that's up to you if you want to make that motion or no.
Well, okay, but before we do that, so we would have a meeting with McCormick with everybody present.
That's what I think.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I don't have a problem with that. So at that point, I'd like to make a motion that we move forward with McCormick at the price of $8,500 to start off with.
Okay, and I'll second it. Is there any further discussion? We had a little bit of discussion without a motion, but I wanted to make sure
Didn't we want to include in the motion that Kevin's going to be the point person? And we should probably include what we're getting for the 8,500. That's just the initial evaluation.
that's a good idea. I'm agreeable to that. How about you, Kevin?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you can amend the motion accordingly, Karen?
Yes, just what are you getting for the 8,500?
Right.
Yeah, it's just initial evaluation.
It's just an initial valuation of the current facility and needs moving forward.
Also a cost structure option set.
Wow.
I'll explain it to you later, Russ.
Cost structure option set.
Modify the existing building. Build two buildings, build one new building. That's what I said.
Right. So what do you have for a motion currently, Karen?
Okay, so the motion, hold on. The motion by Kevin was to move forward with McCormick at a price of 85,000 to start off with.
85,000?
8,500, Karen.
I'm sorry, I have 8,500. 8,500 to start off with. Kevin is the point person, and the 8,500 will provide for the initial evaluation of the current facility and needs moving forward, as well as a cross structure option set.
Okay, is that what you said, Kevin? I'll second it.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, Mike, what's your pleasure?
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Russ,
Aye.
who did I miss?
Mike,
Kevin.
oh, not Kevin.
Kevin, I haven't gotten Kevin yet. Kevin?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. That motion carries. So Kevin, you'll be in contact with Mr. McCormick,
I absolutely will.
and we'll try to get a meeting arranged. Not on a softball night. Softball season is starting, so I'll let you know what my schedule is.
Golf 7 days a week. So we're in
Okay. So now we have our priorities straight. We can move forward. All right, to the reports. Don, you there?
I'm here.
Good. What say ye?
What say me? 13 fire calls for last month, 32 for the year. Combined calls just went over 100. Drill this Tuesday, 5/18. We have Central Hudson will be coming in and giving us a lecture on responding to electrical hazard calls, wires down, et cetera, which will bulk up the class I gave a couple months ago. And we're also getting the tour of the substation on Hibernia Road, which was really good. Steve and I went down there, driver training a couple months ago, and went, yeah, we better know more about this place.
Yes.
It's a scary place. Fiddler's Bridge update I have on this side. I talked to Brian Dingy, Chief of West Clinton. Closure, as you all know, is 6/1 and reopening early September, allegedly. The action plan for our response is that Kevin is going to be going directly from his house. He's still basically north end and not coming down here for a piece of fire equipment. I'll be running fire equipment. Kevin will be command until I get there. And Steve is now tasked with not coming down for fire equipment. He was going to be given a portable update that way. So for any calls at that end, I'll be a driver. It doesn't happen often anymore. So we got a good action plan there. The members have been advised how to proceed over. Best way to Station 2 is Schoolhouse Road.
So Don, if I could just explain that plan a little further.
Sure.
The obvious inference is that it's a lot quicker for you just a quarter mile up the hill on Jameson Hill to grab a piece of equipment. And when you arrive at the scene, I could potentially take over the apparatus and you would take over scene command, right? So it's just a means to get the equipment to the scene quicker, right? And kind of switch roles.
Absolutely. And the same with Kevin, who's, generally going to be a driver, but he's going to be going directly to the scene too. And whatever roles have to be squished, but getting the equipment up there, we'd get it up there more expeditiously than West Clinton may be able to arrive. Tactically, we've had approximately 5 mutual aid calls in that area, all AFAs, I believe, this year. And for all 5 calls, I was able to terminate the alarm before West Clinton responded anyway. But that's not to say that something more serious could arrive. So we got a good plan in place. Continuing training on Monday nights. Kevin will talk about the driver training going very well. We're also going to be doing, we got a new car over here. We're going to be doing some different evolutions on extrication on it. We're going to drain the fluids and any hazardous materials out of the car and put it on its side and work on its side extrication and obviously not leave it on its side because I'm sure something bad would happen. But we'll be playing with that car on drill nights and on Monday nights too. EVOD class will be in June, date to be determined. It'll be two weeknights. I believe we have 3 or 4 support members that are mandated to take it. And they have been informed that it's mandatory if they haven't had it. I don't believe we have any other members right at this point that would be qualified to take it. On 5/22, ULCS is having their road race And the ambulance will be on standby on Salt Point Turnpike to pick up run over dead runners. And we'll be also doing a little traffic control on Schultzville Road, same as always. Remaining the ambulance in our district because obviously the Upton Lake Outlet is in essence the town of Washington now. So standard procedure. FYI, this Saturday, we're going to be doing a quick spin through Heritage Road for 2 birthday parties, great PR. And then on Memorial Day, we'll be doing the same run as we did for the Easter parade and what was the other one? Oh, Santa Run through town. Excellent PR, greatly enjoyed by the community. They did the annual flow test on SCBA, 1 pack failed. And everything else is good. With the failed pack, price is ludicrous. So I have gotten with MES and they do have a new demo pack. They're getting me the price and the savings on getting a new demo pack rather than going the full course. So haven't gotten that figure yet, but should be there in soon. And I believe that's all I have.
What does one of those things cost?
No feet to the fire, somewhere around $5,000.
$5,000.
For a Scott pack?
Yeah.
They were 7 last time we bought them.
Well, I'm looking at the demo.
All right.
I'm looking at the demo at 5.
Okay, thanks, Don.
All right. Is Jimmy Bathrick there?
Oh, nay.
Does Kevin still have the phone in his ear?
Yeah. Mine's on vibrate, Steve.
Kevin, what you got?
All right, all the vehicles have been inspected. 3812 has oil change. The inverter on 71 has been changed. The seatbelt in 12 is not buzzing anymore. Let's see here. The compressors were turned up on 3812 and 3838. Remember, we have once in a while the air pressure be down. Well, the onboard compressors were set too low, so they're up where they should be. Driver training is almost done. We got a couple more to go, and we're working on the pumps. Only other thing I bought 6 charger page for the pagers. We put in the budget last year for buying new pagers, and I have enough pagers. I just need a charger, so that's what the A1 Communications was for those chargers. And I just want to know what we want to do with all these old radios that sitting in the cabinet that are no good. Do I just get rid of them or what? Some of them are dated back probably 25 years.
Are they the high band or are they the low band or what?
I'm not sure what they are. They're back their ways.
Well, if they don't work and people can disagree, I don't see any sense in them hanging around. But does anybody else have any other opinions on that?
If it's not equipment that we're using, it's taking up space and adding confusion. Get rid of them.
Do we have an obligation to declare them surplus or what, Rod?
You need to declare them surplus.
All right, so I move that we declare the defunct radios and pagers surplus, and we authorize Kevin to dispose of them accordingly. Cover a second.
Second.
You probably should have the motion that they're surplus and of no value to the district.
Okay, have you got that, Karen? You can modify that?
Yep.
And somebody seconded that with that amendment?
Second, that was me.
Kevin.
Okay, very good. Any discussion?
Do any of them work at all?
That I don't know. Some of them, the batteries are won't even take a charge, and I don't feel it's warranted to try to find battery to fit it to
Sounds
test.
like sounds like they're junk, then they should be disposed of.
Okay, so I
One,
have,
one caution, they probably need to be destroyed. Rod, you can help me on this, but I'm ham radio operator, and people that get a hold of emergency service radios are a problem. So if we get rid of them, we need to destroy them. So that they
I-
can
Hammer to him,
operate.
Kevin.
I don't think that's necessary because I can go out and buy a emergency services radio transmitter and receiver and talk on the frequency.
Right, but none that says East Clinton Fire District.
Um,
I'll take a hammer to them.
Kevin, you take a hammer to him if we vote on the motion. Bob, what's your pleasure on it?
Aye.
Kevin,
Aye.
Russ,
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
I vote
I got
aye as
it.
well. Motion
I
carried.
got-
Kevin, if you could just give him a good whack, that'll fix him.
I
okay,
got a question for Kevin, if possible. Looking at the voucher for the service on 3812, I mean, I know I'm living in the past, but I was amazed at the service. To me, a service was like an oil change and a grease job. And does that thing take 8 gallons of oil? They charge it for 32 quarts of oil.
yep, that's what they take.
Mhm.
Okay, I was just amazed, that. And the filter was like $100 for an oil filter. I'm saying, good God, I can't.
Mike is shaking his head, yes.
Those prices look a little high to me too, Russ, but people are charging a lot. It's hard to get good people to work on diesel trucks and
Well,
they're charging
I
a
see the
premium.
labor's going up to
we've got
$120 an hour.
$120 an hour. It's not cheap, but there's no other game in town, so.
All right, well, I assumed that they were legitimate. That's why I signed them, but I was amazed at $600
Yeah,
for the
I thought that
service.
was pretty high. I mean, some filters are that much, but both the oil and the fuel filter be that much. It's pretty steep.
Did we send a bill for each one of the inspections too, or not?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, $20.
Yeah, 5 inspections.
The only bill we didn't get was from A1 Auto.
All right, the New York State inspection, I didn't know if that was all added on there.
Yeah, that was
Yep,
it.
we got that one.
Okay, all right, I don't have any more.
Thank you. Good job, Kevin. Anybody there for the rescue squad?
Yes, someone's from the rescue squad. We had 23 calls for the month, 58 for the year. Our drill is going to be on May 25th. It will be extrication and use of the KTD training. And we're slotted to there's 3 members who do not have CPR. We'll be conducting CPR training for those 3 individuals. That's all I have. Any questions?
For me, any questions for Bob or any of the chiefs?
Any update on the new ambulance? No communication?
I've
Last
not
time,
heard anything. I've not heard
the last
anything.
we heard was June. Yeah.
June, okay.
All right. As I mentioned previously, we have had some inquiries on the rehab vehicle and I have advised them that sealed bids are required. Lawn service update. I got 2 bids. One was from Martin's Property Management in Rhinebeck. They were the low bidder at $175.
For what?
They provided me with a certificate of liability insurance. The other bid was $210 from Zunick Lawn Mowing up in Rhinebeck as well. I would be more than happy to go with Martin's if anybody cares to make a motion to that extent, or I can make a motion.
I'll make a motion for discussion.
Okay, I'll second. What's the discussion?
Just having a per hour or per mowing doesn't tell us all that we need to know. We need to stay within our budget that we talked about last September for the mowing. Are we able to do that with the information you've got there?
Well, we knew we were going to go up if we went to somebody differently, and I don't know what the budget is, quite honestly.
I'll have to
But
double check. I think it was like 3,000, Steve.
Yeah, I called 4 people and I only got 2 bids, if that's any indication of what the availability of landscapers is.
Right, but the kicker is there, if it gets too expensive, we've got to cut down on what we mow so that we stay within a budget. It's not an open check.
No, well, $3,000
Was that 175 per mowing or?
per mowing. That's 17 times. If we got a
It should be
$3,000
okay
budget.
then.
I don't know that we're gonna do any better. I know we're not gonna do any better, because like I say, I called 4 people to get 2 bids.
But again, what I'm saying is we need to be prepared to say, hey, don't mow as much each time
Okay, point
and
taken.
decrease the cost. But if you say there's 17 mowings, I don't think there's, ask Don how many times he mowed during the summer.
Every 10 days, it's been mowed once. So if you consider 3 times a month, depending on what August is like, sometimes there's partial mowings where the grass doesn't grow as great. Bob, there's how much for accounted for?
I think it's 3,000. We'll verify. One.
You won't have a problem with 3,000.
Okay,
All right.
I'm good then.
So we got a motion, we got a second. Any more discussion? Mike, what's your pleasure?
Aye.
Russ?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. That motion carries. I will make that communication. Okay. In your folders were 2 letters, 2 drafts. They have not been sent out. One to the West Clinton Board of Commissioners and one to the Stanford Board of Commissioners. You have had opportunity, because I emailed it and it's in your folder, to review the letters. I think the letters are relatively self-explanatory. I wanted to cut a middle ground and not be overly accusatory, but certainly let it be known that we were concerned and maybe even felt a little bit taken advantage of. You know, so the question's twofold. Do we want to send this kind of letter? And are people comfortable? If the answer is yes, are people comfortable with the tone of the letter? And did I miss any important points? So I guess first question is there anybody that has strong feelings one way or the other that this letter should or should not be sent to Stanford and to West Clinton?
We should send them.
My question is, and you guys are much more knowledgeable than I am on this. Since we have an ambulance corps, it's not necessary you provide, as I've been explained, EMT service, but it is necessary you have fire service. I mean, it seems like both of these other districts are putting us in a difficult position by their lack of providing what we would think they would be providing. And I guess I'm kind of wondering, do we have to go when the county calls us for like second call on one of these districts because they're not taking up their slack, that we have to respond and burn our people out?
But we should go as long as it's balanced.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem like it is balanced. It seems like I've been told Stanford doesn't seem to respond to anything. And I don't know, I see you have in here the thing about what's your agreement with NDP. I mean, if they don't have any, if they're not responding, what is the response expected over there? It shouldn't be us.
Well, I think, and that's the issue. I think a lot of the times it is us, right? They have a paid service for a period of time throughout the week. My observation is that they don't have paid people in on weekends, and there's almost an implied expectation that because they're off shift, that mutual aid companies, be it Roosevelt or whomever, are going to cover their needs. And honestly, I take a certain offense to that. I'm Don. I don't know. What's your perspective?
Here we go. And Steve, you've heard me preach this over and over and over again. And as well, you know, you cannot rely on the Northern Duchess or M-Star or whomever to provide backup. As well, you know, a vast majority of the time, and Bob will shake his head, yes, there are no paid services available. So therefore, it's not whenever West Clinton's off shift or Stanford is unable to respond. It doesn't immediately befall to us. It only comes to us when there is no paid unit available or there's only a fly car available. However, I would stand and safely say the number of times in our current environment that a full ALS rig is available to respond either to Stanford or to West Clinton is probably less than 50% of the time. So a fly car still means you have to bring an ambulance to the scene. The question therein that Steve has asked, and I know for a fact, no, for Stanford, they do not have a contract with usually the provider up here is Northern Duchess. They do not have a contract that would reserve a unit for them at all times. Contracts are very expensive, and as Steve worded very well, we are blessed that we have a good response level, though small in number. So to shorten it, it's not every time they can't get off the floor that we have to go. It's where the call is and what Northern Duchess is able to provide. Without a contract, there's no guarantees they're going to provide anything.
Rod, you had your hand up?
Yes, in answer to Russ's question, East Clinton Fire District has signed the Dutchess County Mutual Aid Agreement. And so the way the agreement stands now, East Clinton is obligated to respond when they're called by a neighboring district. They've signed that agreement. East Clinton can withdraw either fully or partially from that agreement. So if it is the desire of the board to say, we're not going to Stanford or West Clinton with our ambulance any longer, you could write a letter to the county telling them, we are not going to be part of the mutual aid agreement for 3871.
But there's a certain message there that I would be very hesitant to send, right?
Absolutely. No.
And you know, we are reliant, as I point out in the letters, we are, for big incidents, 100% reliant on our neighboring companies, right? And our districts. And the point was not to rile them up. The point was to ask some hard questions but also pointing out that we understand the relationship and we're fully in support of the mutual aid agreement.
Well, I brought that up not to propose it, but just to make clear that at this point, we are obligated to respond when called by West Clinton or Stanford.
And that's true for the town of Washington also, I'd imagine.
That's correct.
Washington's paid 24/7.
But we still have to, if we're asked to go, we still have to go.
Yeah, but absolutely. But that is so rare, it's not even measurable.
They're not going to call.
They're not going to call when they have a paid ambulance that is in their district at all times. When the paid ambulance is out, they call their volunteers or call another paid ambulance in.
And that's what they do. NDP will call another NDP unit.
So apparently West Clinton does have some agreement with NDP, but Stanford does not. Am I correct in that?
I thought NDP's, I thought West Clinton's agreement was pretty much the same as ours.
They don't have a contract.
They don't have a contract.
I think they have an informal handshake agreement.
Oh, okay.
That's not a contract.
That's not a contract. It's an informal handshake agreement. So, Rod, one more question for you. Do you think it would be beneficial to copy Dana Smith on this type of letter?
No, I don't. I think at this point, this is something that, I mean, you're trying to keep this a productive, constructive, friendly conversation with West Clinton and Stanford. And so I don't see the need to go higher up the food chain.
Okay.
If you consider Dana higher up the food chain, which not all of us do.
All right. So I would move that the board authorize me to sign these letters and that they be sent to West Clinton and Stanford respectively. I covet a second.
Second,
Okay. Is there anybody that thinks the language is too strong?
Well, I'm just wondering, this is kind of an offshoot here, but I'm wondering how much would be accomplished if our chief spoke to the chief of these two districts too, in addition to these letters. I have no problem with a letter, but I wonder how much interaction we have, physically between the districts. Maybe some of this could be addressed.
I mean,
It's probably nothing's gonna happen because I assume that the reason why they're not responding is they don't have enough people. Their people don't want to go possibly. And I'm sure they're already trying to motivate that and it's not going anywhere. So
also, they're not willing, they're not willing to burden their taxpayers with full coverage of their paid
sure,
EMTs.
that's gonna be the only thing. That's gonna be the only thing that's gonna make a difference. I mean, it sounds like their departments are kind of waning,
Well, and the other thought, and hopefully West Clinton people aren't listening to this public meeting, is that if we make this point, we have a lever that we could potentially use to convince them that a coverage contract for the northern part of our district, which would bring the insurances down here and potentially provide us better coverage, would be, well, let's just say beneficial at a much lower cost.
I like that idea. The only things that I'm feeling bad about is with our limited people who are EMTs, we're putting a lot of work on taking up a lot of their hours for other districts. And I wasn't aware of how short you really were on people.
Well, let me just tell you, 23 calls in a month is a big time month for East Clinton. I mean, when I was an EMT and we were getting up into the 20, 21, 22 area, that was a busy month. So 23 calls in a month is big time busy, and you're right.
And with this Airbnb or equivalent rental, I think it's going to go up.
But so I mean, I think we got to send the letters and make the point. I'm trying to toe a middle ground and not be offensive and point out that we do fully support the mutual aid agreement and we're anxious to work with them. But certainly in the case of West Clinton, additional communication is in order.
And Steve, out of that 23, 5 of those were mutual support.
Aid.
Sorry.
Well, I thought that, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought that West Clinton had 2 EMTs paid during the day and 1 at night. And at night they were counting on a fire person to come and drive the ambulance. So I thought they had pretty good coverage, but apparently that's not true.
I don't know what they got on weekends, but that seems to be when most of the West Clinton calls hit.
Don't they have like a brand new super expensive ambulance too?
Oh yeah.
They're not using it. That sucks.
But it doesn't have hydraulics.
They paid like 250 to 300 at least for that ambulance.
It's a lot of money and not be out at calls.
Yep. All right. Any other discussion? Mike, what's your pleasure?
Aye.
Russ?
Aye.
Kevin?
aye.
Bob?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. So Karen, if you would put those on our letterhead and leave them at the firehouse, I'd be most happy to sign them and we'll get those out.
Will do.
Thank you. All right. In 1 minute, haven't heard the ding dong. Ed Houlihan is going to join us to talk, hopefully in about 15 or 20 minutes, about what our assumed rate of return is and what he thinks would be a good rate of return and how that would affect us from a budget perspective. I don't know if I want to get into anything. If you look at the agenda items note that sent out, and I'm talking in code here because I want to avoid going to executive session. We did get through the Lens program notification of an injury, and that person who's listed at the top of the agenda was sent a letter notifying him that he cannot return to active duty until he gets a return to duty physical. So just wanted to make that point. Is there anything membership or anything from the department?
Steve, before you leave that, are we going to request a physician to do it or just a normal, what is it, TK?
I'd leave that to the greater wisdom of the board, whatever the majority thinks. I'm good with it.
Well, no, which direction do you recommend we go in?
I think it's situational for this one. The type of job that he holds is not a high physical stress situation. I'd be comfortable with TEK. Or if we had an interior firefighter, I might think something different.
Okay.
All right. Marianne, anything from the department or any membership application?
No membership applications this month. And what I have is a report on the 501c3. The IRS has asked the Clinton Volunteer Fire Department to amend their articles of incorporation to include the dissolution clause. Even though the dissolution clause is included in our bylaws, they want us to amend the articles of incorporation. So we're in the process of doing it. I've already developed the certificate of amendment, and we voted on it. We had a board of directors meeting and voted on it, and the membership meeting, which is considered the shareholders of the corporation, and voted on it Monday. So as soon as I'm able to get the minutes to include it, I will send that off to the IRS.
All right, thank you. Good update. Now, Ed, was that you that just came in?
That was me. You're not going to get my picture, which is a great thing, but you got
Yeah,
me.
we're good with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.
All right,
Yeah.
so we just wanted to talk and have you field some questions on, I think we have right now, Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, a 5% assumed rate of return on the LoSAP investment, and wanted to get some feedback from you on that and put you in a position so you could field some questions, and also talk
Sure.
about but just moving forward. I think we're at least 100% funded right now, which is pretty good. So just wanted to.
Yeah. Yes, we used in last year's cost calculation, we did use a 5% assumed investment return for future investment. And last year's calculation, you're like 99%. Well, Dave Rogers had another good year for his clients, and you earned, I think you earned like 9%. I don't have that number in front of me, which means that you're funded. If we don't change anything, your funded ratio will now be over 100%, like 104, 105%. So you're north of where you need to be. So that's a really good. It's a really good situation to be in. However, if what we do, I know Dave Rogers talked to you about, he's concerned about future investment return. Well, we certainly do. The actuaries on our staff, our chief actuary is Katie Young. She looks at key forecast over the next 10 to 20 years of future investment returns for portfolios similar to yours, and they're projected to come down. So we're thinking that your actuarial team here is thinking that it would make sense to drop the investment return rate, not by a lot, but we're thinking about, and as a matter of fact, we're doing the calculation now, but I want to have this meeting first with you, 4.75%. And even if that turns out to be, not as, too low, that's okay, because you'd rather go that way, because if you take a lower return than actually happens, that's conservative, which means that you'll build up surpluses. If we're assuming 4.75 and over the next, next 10 years, we average 5.25, then you have gains. So your funded ratio is going to go up even higher, which is great. And your contributions are going to come down. So, and it's always been my nature over the years. I would much rather sort of lower the target and build up surpluses, because the other way around just never made a lot of sense to me. And we have some clients who, not so much fire districts, but there's more towns where, you know, they have the 2% property tax cap, and what they do to with their investment advisors like Dave Rogers, they say, hey, let's put a lot more of the money in the stock market. Let's go for the higher investment return. And then they turn around and say to their actuaries, like myself and our group, you know, raise the interest rate up to 6% or something. Well, if you're that aggressive and you actually hit those kinds of returns, you know, good for you, but that's not likely going to happen. And you're probably going to get, you know, ups and downs. And you're going to get years when your contributions are higher than expected, and years when lower expected. So, you know, we're not a big fan of that. You know, that being said, we have, again, mostly large towns that take more of that approach. So we're conservative. You know, our single most important job is to talk to the commissioners, work with your investment advisor, and work with the investment advisor and pick out that investment return rate, because ultimately, you know, we want to keep you, you know, your funding percentage over 100%. But really, we guide you. When we do this calculation, if you look every year in the annual actuarial valuation report, our highest ranking actuary, who right now is Katie, signs a certification which says that, you know, we recommend that you make this contribution calculated using the assumptions that are set forth in this report, and we certify that it's appropriate, et cetera, et cetera. If in fact we say that, and then all of a sudden your investment return, you know, drops off the cliff, you know, we have some liability. So that's why it's the most important thing. We're as professional actuaries, we have to look into the crystal ball called the future and guide you. So as your guide, and I like to think I've done this ever since I've been working with you, is I want to be conservative. I don't want to set targets that are just too high and ridiculous. And that's what I want to continue to do. So we would like to go to 4.75. We'll finish that report this week. That'll still keep your funded ratio around 100%. That's all good. It'll raise your contributions from like probably 56 and change to maybe 60. So we're still significantly, I remember, gosh, when we first put the $30 program, I think, you know, 2008, I remember having done that calculation. We're looking at an estimated cost of $225,000. So in the meantime, you know, we're getting rid of the $30 program, but now with the $20 program, which is what you have, you know, it's frozen. It was still over 100,000. So you're in good shape with the $60,000 contribution in terms of what we projected the cost would be. And because it's a frozen group, we're not adding new people. The only thing that happens is, you know, people come out of the group, and of course we know we have the new defined contribution plan. So the whole thing is kind of playing out the way we hoped it would, and your contributions on the defined benefit side are projected to go down as you have fewer and fewer participants. And like I said, the only thing that could throw that the other way would be some pretty bleak investment return years. But that's where we're coming from.
We're going to have corrections, but you know, if we're 105% funded right now, we can afford some of those. And I would venture a guess that even with the investment returns that we have, that the vast majority of your accounts are probably not even 90% funded, or would I be off with that?
No, that would be correct. The ones that we have had from the beginning, which is the case of East Clinton Fire District, yeah, they are up in the 90% anyway, for the most part. The ones we've taken over from other vendors, some of them, frankly, are in terrible shape. You know, we have some that are older than your plan, another 10 years older that have funded ratios of under 50%. So that's because they just worked with people that sold them, frankly, a bunch of garbage for investments. But we don't have that. We're in great shape. We're staying course, and and we're gonna, each year, of course, as you get, and hopefully you'll get more people into the defined contribution program. You're going to get, that's pretty easy. It's $700 a piece for everyone that goes in, and those that don't stay long enough to get 5 years of credit in, they're going to, their account balances are going to be forfeited, so that'll give you a credit. So I think where we want it, we're where, no matter what, where we need to be, and I think more importantly, where we want to be.
All right. Does anybody, Mike or Kevin or Bob or Russ, any questions for Ed?
I don't, no.
Steve, there might be some
Okay.
some explanations of what by changing that assumption does. And it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing in all cases for us, but just a quick explanation.
Well, sure. What we do, there's two key assumptions that we make in any defined benefit program. A volunteer reaches the entitlement age, and we pay him whatever, number of years of service times 20. Let's say it's got 15 in, times 20 is $300 a month. So we have to project how long the participant is going to be living, and therefore collecting those monthly benefits. That's what we call the mortality assumption. Okay, we do that, and the other more powerful assumption is we have to say that, okay, the current investments, the current assets of the program, and as of a year ago, you had 1.031. So now it's a year later. I get it. So you have over $1 million in your trust fund. And we say, okay, those assets are going to be invested. And how much investment income are we protecting? Well, the greater the investment income, the lower the cost, because ultimately all these service award payments are paid from two sources: the taxpayers of the fire district and the investment income earned on the fund. So if we're projecting this gangbuster great investment returns, then the taxpayers don't have to put in much money. On the other hand, if we're projecting it to be too high, and over the years we're saying, "Oops, it didn't turn out to be 6 or whatever we said," we got to put more money in. Fire district has to put more money in. So, and you get volatility, but in the long run, we want to project on the other side. We want to actually project a number that's going to be less than we actually expect to receive, and that way, from year to year, we expect that your budgeted contribution is going to be more than enough to cover it. Your funded ratio is going to stay over 100%, and your costs are going to level off and go down, and that's super important. And as I said, right now you have over 100%. These programs are audited in the report, the annual audit report that you send to the state controller's office. That's all reported in there. So it becomes a matter of public record that says that you're prudently funding your program, and that you're communicating with your actuary and your investment advisor. You're having these kinds of meetings and those kinds of discussions. So it gives you, A, it recognizes that your program is solidly funded, and B, gives the commissioners credit for doing their job properly. So you're headed, you're doing everything you should, and that's the significant thing. And another part of my conservative approach to these, remember I just said a minute ago, was we have to project how long how long these volunteers are going to live once they reach the payout age. We, in recent years, there's been improvements in life expectancies and projecting people to live longer. In the most recent years, that has not been the case, primarily because of COVID. But generally, there's been projections that people are going to live longer. We don't use those projections. We use, again, conservative, okay, because you could argue let's assume everybody's going to live to be 95, but there's a balancing act here. You know, if that 95 should be 85, that means you're overfunding. You know, it could be argued that you're overtaxing the current generation because your actuary is making assumptions that just don't make sense. It would be the same way if we said, instead of using 4.75%, we're going to use 3%. We say, well, no, wait a minute. We know it's going to be way more than that. So there's a balancing act here. We have to be prudent, but at the same time, we have to be careful of not being accused of overtaxing the current generation. We do have some clients that have funded ratios, not many, of 150%. So what we say to them is, no, we might tell them to put in 100,000 and they put in 150,000. You know, once they get up to 100% or maybe a little north of 100%, I would tell them, okay, you got to stop putting in those extra contributions because you could be accused of that. The only time that makes sense is if you say, oh, okay, we're so well funded, we want to increase the benefits in the program, but I don't see us doing that in East Clinton.
All right.
So everybody,
Any other
does that make
questions
sense?
for Ed? Now, Bob Trzynski, is this something you think we want to chew on, or you think it's something we want to vote on tonight?
I'm good to vote on it tonight.
All right, you
Unless
want to make a
somebody
motion?
has further questions. It doesn't have to be done tonight, but we could just get it out of the way.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
Well, yeah, plus what we would do is we're working on your actual evaluation report right now. As soon as this is over, I'm going to email Katie and we can get you the actual evaluation report, let's say the next week.
On
I would like
whatever we vote tonight.
Yeah, so I would, we're recommending that it be lowered to 4.75. You vote to go with us with that recommendation, then it's basically a done deal for this year. The report will be issued, the statements will be issued, the audit report. So we'll all be, there's one less thing on our to-do list, and we made a wise move.
All right, Bob, do you want to make a motion, or what's your pleasure?
You're better at it. Go ahead. I'll second it.
All right, I would therefore move that we modify the rate of return assumption for the LoSAP fund from its current rate of 5% to the 4.75% per our discussions with Mr. Houlihan for actuarial calculations moving forward.
I second.
All right.
All right, any discussion? Kevin, Michael, Russ?
Sounds good to me.
All right, commissioners, it's a
All
done
right,
deal.
We'll do an official vote here. Mike, what's your pleasure?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Russ?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. That motion carries. So you'll do the new actuarial assumption on 4 3/4.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, very good. Any more questions?
No, I think we're good. Thank you.
Thanks,
All right,
Ed.
commissioners. Nice
All right,
talking
have a
to you.
good
Happy
night.
to do it. And if something comes up, reach out to me.
Yep, Bob's your contact.
Yes, he is. All right, commissioners. Good night. Thank you.
All right, have a good night. All right. Any old business that I may have missed?
Steve, when we had a recent meeting over at the firehouse regarding these people giving us
Who's
a
that?
firehouse, there was a mention that we might try to get a group together to go and see Falls Village again. And I think I spoke to Bob Simon. I think the point of contact there, it was Susan. So, I mean, I think we should, those that are interested, I'd sure like to go over and see the place.
Yeah, I think it'll be a worthwhile trip. Kevin, you got my email with the point of contact?
Yes, I do.
All right. Is that something you could arrange?
Well, is Susan available to do that, or you want me to do it?
Susan is not available. Susan's not available.
All right. So I'm thinking you could do it, Kevin, hopefully.
Okay. Now, how many we talking? Are we taking, 2 cars, 1 car? I mean, I know I'd like to go. You want to go?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we'll drive in caravan. Some people can get in cars, but we just get the head count and we just mosey on over at a certain time.
I think it
Yeah,
would be-
maybe we could twist Don's arm and borrow a district vehicle or.
Yeah, you can take the rehab vehicle.
I think it would be beneficial if we could, at the same time, maybe have Mr. McCormick.
Yeah, I agree with that too, Russ.
All right, so Kevin, if you'd be willing and try to make that arrangement, schedules are gonna get more complicated as golf and softball opens up, as we made mention before, but
Let me contact McCormick first. Give him the news. I think at that point he'd be very more motivated to go out with us to see the firehouse, right? And then we'll move on from there. And then I'll make contact with the contact person out there and see what we can do. Now,
All right.
is a weekend bad, or do you want to go after work? Because some of us still do work.
Some of us still do. I'd be open to either or, depending on what possibly I have going that night.
All right, so let me put together 3-4 different dates down the road, and shortly down the road, obviously. I'll put together 2-3 different dates, and we get a little caravan going, and Russ is more than happy to sit in the bed of my truck and ride out with me.
Good deal. Now, new business.
Hey,
I
Steve?
didn't.
I'm sorry, would this include the committee as well as the commissioners?
I would think absolutely.
Okay,
Sure.
good. All right.
I didn't have it on the agenda items. But Bob and I have talked, Rod and I have talked. I think maybe the cannabis legalization situation needs a little bit of clarification and discussion. Right, we left last meeting with the idea that it was not legal to sell for another year and a half, but it is currently legal to possess, and I guess by inference, to use marijuana in New York State. Rod, you and I had discussion if any additional policy was required relative to use by firefighters, whether to use on site, and you stated that you thought the current policy was sufficient at this point. You want to elaborate on that just a little bit?
Yes, while possession of marijuana is legal under New York law, it is not legal under federal law. And so our policy provides for any illegal drug or substance marijuana still would be pursuant to the federal law. The issue which the board will have at some point in the future will be when someone gets tested for marijuana or an illegal substance and it comes back positive, but they haven't smoked it in 3 weeks. East Clinton is not the only fire district or police department in that situation, because they haven't worked out how they're going to figure out if you're under the influence of marijuana or not yet. But I think the current policy that we have now is sufficient for the time being.
Any more questions for Rod or?
Yeah, I've got a question. If someone has an incident, and this is a couple of ifs, they test positive, they've had a reason to be tested. How does that affect VFBL? Is there any problems in that area? Because that protects the district big time.
Well, if they're under the influence of marijuana, VFBO would not protect them, but the district is not obligated to provide them with protection if they have an illegal substance in their body.
Yeah, but having taken your course twice and missing doing it a third time, no VFBL, the person has the right to sue the district.
Yeah, and the districts, well, even with VFBL, they're going to sue the district.
I thought that excluded that if you take VFBL funds, you cannot sue a district. That's the presumption that I was going on.
Well, I guess we got to talk about who's suing. If a firefighter gets hurt and he's got illegal drugs in his system, that's one thing. But if a driver has an incident that causes injury to a member of the general public, right? That's entirely another.
Yeah, this is so complicated. I'm probably not going to get through it here. But I don't know. I'm confused and definitely interested.
Well, the marijuana is no different than if a firefighter is drunk on the scene and gets injured.
So if a driver had an incident and injured a member of the general public under the influence of alcohol, the district would get sued.
District is going to get sued in any situation.
And the liability insurance would apply at that point?
Yes, and in fact, the liability insurance may provide the defense for the district.
If a
and even if-
member gets injured on a call under the influence, he would not be covered by VFBL or district insurance. Is that an accurate statement?
Well, the member who gets injured, is that a person who is under the influence, or is that an innocent firefighter who gets injured by someone who's under the influence?
Well, good point. So there's two situations. Which one we got? The person who is injured by that person
Is
would
covered,
be covered by VFBL.
correct.
Yeah, that's an innocent bystander.
Right. The person,
But if one of
who's
our
under
members
the
is
influence-
driving his vehicle or one of our vehicles and gets hurt, hits a tree, or flips a car or a truck, they would be covered under VFBL. But if they're drunk or under the influence of the wacky tobacco, would they be covered under VFBL? And if that person who was responding is not covered under VFBL, my understanding was that they as a member could sue the district.
Yes, and the district's defense is going to be, you're under the influence of alcohol or an illegal drug.
Okay, so the risk decreases.
The risk decreases because there is a defense to that.
And our
Okay.
policy clearly states that members are not to respond if they are under the influence.
Right.
Okay,
But gentlemen, let's just say you're at some place, secondhand smoke, whatever it might be, marijuana stays in your system easily 20 to 30 days. So if the person did smoke or was around someone else smoking, and 20 days later something happens and they get tested and it still shows in their system, they're not really under the influence.
Correct. They're not. And that's what makes the marijuana law so unique. You're under the influence of alcohol until the alcohol is out of your system.
Right.
You're under the influence of you're not under the influence of marijuana, but you're going to get tested positive for the 30 days after you smoke it. So let's say somebody gets tested today and the test comes back positive and they say, yeah, I smoked it 3 weeks ago. The question for the commissioners when they want to hand out discipline is, was he under the influence at the time of the incident or not? And that's a question of fact.
yeah, but we don't know. We don't know how to. We don't know how to prove that, and we're not there. And even our chief officers are really trained to do all the tests that the police would do.
Well, let's say the test let's say marijuana shows up in his system. You can't make a determination now because you don't know the facts of it. It could be that somebody shows up who has tested positive for marijuana, but he's perfectly fine. There's nobody who will say that he was under the influence because he did nothing wrong. And you can't make that determination until you're presented with a set of facts.
But our implied stance at this point is that per federal law, marijuana is still an illegal substance, right? And our policy clearly covers that.
That's correct.
And so the disciplinary action would be engaged if that test were to come back positive at this juncture.
Right.
That would
And then the board would be in a position to make a determination of what, if any, discipline should be imposed based upon the facts of the specific incident.
Okay,
Shouldn't we just follow the lead of some much larger organization and see what they're doing on this instead of us trying to figure it out in the blind?
Eventually, but I,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mike, I think everybody's just trying to figure it out right now. So,
Yeah, but there must be someone out there that's an expert on this that can give us guidance, or we can follow their lead or something like that.
eventually I think we'll be there, but I don't think we're there yet.
and we don't
Yeah.
want to be the first ones to find out about this stuff.
Yeah. All right. Is there any other new business that I missed?
Steve, may I ask a quick question on this marijuana thing? Which one, if it state says one thing and the feds say something different, which law prevails?
Well, New York State Police wouldn't arrest you, but a federal drug enforcement agent could arrest you. So in this case, as far as we're concerned, federal law would supersede state law here, and it's still an illegal substance in New York under federal law.
But your likelihood of getting arrested is very small.
Yes,
slim to none, and Slim just walked out the door.
Kind of like ICE. ICE has the power to arrest people, but the states are blocking their path to do it.
All right. Any other new business?
Okay.
Anything from the public? Who we got out there? We got Glenda, we got Tony. We got Elliot. Anything, people? Any questions, concerns?
No.
Nope.
All right, Mike, you're on.
Make the motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second. And Bob, what's your pleasure?
Aye.
Russ?
Aye.
Kevin?
Well, but I one statement, Steve, I'm gonna get a hold of McCormick. We'll let him know the news. I will inform him that we all want, or most of us want to go out and check out the firehouse. I would like to include him. As soon as I have all that information, we'll put out 2-3 different dates, and hopefully we can all agree on one and move from there.
Perfect.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. Very good, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good night.
You too.
Take care. Good night.